Do you want me to text him?
Okay, folks are joining in. We'll wait for like 30 seconds or 1 minute for Nishant because he's the president of the ISB Alumni Association US chapter, and he was supposed to give the introduction and to the topic and the folks. We'll wait for 30 to 40 seconds. I think it's very early in the US right now, maybe around 7:30 for him in the morning. Arvind, start letting all the folks inside.
Yes, I'll do that.
Cool. Okay, I think we should just start. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I said that because we have folks from lots of different time zones. We have folks from the US, West Coast, East Coast, where it's 7:30 in the morning, 10:30 in the morning. We have folks from the UK, where it's 3:30 in the afternoon. Indian, it's 8 p.m. and Singapore, it's 10:30 p.m. So thank you so much for joining this particular session. I completely appreciate it. The panel that we have is extremely diverse, stellar, and experts in their own fields. We have Journey Lee from Nansen AI, which is NFT market analytics platform. We have Sharan, Nair, the Chief Business Officer of CoinSwitch. We have Mr. Shashi Jha, the Chief Compliance Officer from WazirX, and I'm Akand Sitra from Business Strategy Team of TRM Labs. So the short agenda of this call is that we'll try to talk about, give an introduction statement, talk about our journey for five minutes each. And then we'll start answering most of the questions that the audience has already asked. All the audience members can use the chat box to ask any questions that you have to any of the panelists. We are happy to take any of the questions. We are unfortunately unable to unmute yourselves because of such a huge number of audience over here. Over 600 plus registrations have come in, and we expect at least 100 folks to be in the room. So please use the chat box completely, and we'll love to answer your questions. Starting, Ms. Journey Lee, can you give a brief introduction about yourself and what your company does, etc.?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Akand. Thank you for having me. And hi, everyone. Greetings from Singapore. That's where I'm based in. So my name is Journey. I do marketing for Nansen. And what does Nansen do? So at Nansen, we believe that the future of finance is built on blockchain, such as DeFi and NFTs. And therefore, we analyzed and labeled over 100 million Ethereum addresses and their activity, such as exchanges, crypto funds, and all those whale traders. So we have a better view of what is actually happening on chain. And then we help investors and traders to surface the signal and discover new opportunities. So I think what really puts Nansen on the map is that people call us the Bloomberg of NFTs, right? So we actually provide the market intelligence on all the NFT collections, and people know who are the whales, who are the epic NFT collectors are buying and trading. Yeah, so that's what we do in a nutshell. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Johnny. Sharan, a brief description about yourself, about CoinSwitch, your journey into blockchain, please.
Sure. I often describe myself as a happy-go-lucky kid. Straight out of college, I got into crypto before I understood what crypto is. This is back in 2014. I had two job offers, one with Airtel and one with Uno Coin, which was one of the first crypto companies in India. I dropped my job with Airtel because I didn't want to sell SIM cards for the rest of my life. Joined Uno Coin. To be very honest, I didn't understand crypto. Nobody really did at that point in time. And I remember there was a college that came in and said, hey, we want to understand about crypto. And I was the only MBA guy we were a team of 7 people. So I was the only MBA guy. And for everyone else, for non-MBA people, MBA guys make slides and PPTs, right? So then I was told that, oh, you have to go and explain to them what crypto is. And in the process, I've done 100 plus meetups by now. And that's how my learning of cryptocurrencies have been on the go, right? I currently work as a chief business officer at CoinSwitch, which is one of the largest cryptocurrency exchanges in India. We recently crossed 10 million users in India. You must have also known us by our bold headings that come out on the front page of most of the national dailies. And we're backed by some of the best investors out there on the planet. We're backed by people like Sequoia, Ribbit, Tiger, Coinbase, A16Z, you name it, and they're on our cap table. So yeah.
Beautiful. I didn't know that you worked with Unicorn. I think they were the first Bitcoin ATM providers in Bangalore, I guess. Am I right?
Yeah, that's an episode that went wrong, but yeah, yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. Love the advertisement in the newspapers. That was a huge marketing miracle that happened. Kudos to you guys. Mr. Shashi, a brief introduction about yourself, please. What you do, what your company does, etc.
Hi, everyone. I actually used to be a very boring traditional banker and true to traditional ways of banking and running money. I used to be very strict about, regulations, ensuring that they are complied with, creating new ones to harass customers, etc. Then at some point in time, I realized that, maybe cryptos are the way forward. It's the new evolution of money. And then I was talking to some guys at WazirX. They made me an offer that we need someone to manage our compliance and legal side of the business. So I jumped in here. Uh, so I have been here and there in terms of banking. Uh, Otherwise, by training, I am a certified company secretary from Institute of Company Secretaries of India, and I have also done a master's in financial management. Like from legacy old days, I'm also a certified banker and an anti-money laundering specialist. I also happen to be a lawyer, although I hardly practice because nowadays, all the practice which you get is, trying to convince stakeholders that crypto is a good thing in this country. So that's broadly what I do. WazirX, well, it is one of the earliest. I'm not saying it is the earliest. It is one of the earliest platforms for providing cryptocurrency trades in India. When India was going through the rough phases of cryptos in early 2018, when banking access was revoked, so we came out with a P2P marketplace, which was considered very well advanced at the time compared to what was the available product in India. Currently, in terms of volumes, etc. So our nearest three competitors put together probably reach become equal to us in terms of volume, and we also kind of act as liquidity provider to a variety of exchanges in India. So that's broadly. Here again, coming back to my core role, so I drive the compliance and legal as well as public policy agendas, and we are trying to make crypto understandable for both bureaucrats as well as some of the other stakeholders in country.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, a short introduction about myself. So after graduating way back in 2013, I joined the government of India with the Intelligence Bureau as an assistant central intelligence officer. I worked there for 3-4 years. I was placed in the cyber cells in Delhi. I was posted in Bihar for a couple of years, where I started. We were doing dark web monitoring, social media analysis, all kinds of different kinds of catching hold of cyber criminals, basically. That was my first touch with cryptocurrencies from a government side, from a law enforcement agency side. We were trying to catch hold of folks, criminals who are using Bitcoin, etc., on the dark web, buying drugs, buying weapons, etc. That was the first use case way back in 2015, 16. So at that time, it was my job to understand what crypto was. And I started reading more and more about crypto, about blockchain, and I was amazed. I was awed by the financial implications, by the industry disruption that crypto itself can do, that blockchain itself can do. And it was an amazing eye-opener for me. And I went down the rabbit hole, as all of us have gone over here. I read more and more about it. Post that, I joined the private sector back. I did my MBA from the Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. Post that, I worked for a B2G company, business to government company, where we were selling technologies to the governments. Right now, I work with TRM Labs, leading their business strategy team, focusing more on Asia, Africa, European regions. TRM Labs, as we put it, we are a blockchain analytics company. We create tools, we create software to perform cryptocurrency, monitoring, tracing to ensure that nothing illegal happens in that space. We provide tools to perform risk management, crypto compliance, etc., across to exchanges, to financial institutions, to banks, to law enforcement agencies, and other intelligence agencies. It's a fun ride. I used to work from the government side trying to trace these cryptos. Now on the other side, where we are helping the governments to trace cryptos and catch hold of folks, criminals from that perspective. I am glad that we are having this panel discussion. I love this panel. We have Journey, who's an expert in NFTs. We can speak on that. Sharan, who's from the business and business side of a cryptocurrency exchange. We have Shashi, who speaks on the compliance, cryptos, regulatory perspective, and I can speak from the blockchain security perspective. So this would be an amazing discussion to have because of our diverse expertise in our specific fields. And to be honest, we have received hundreds of amazing questions from the audience who had registered for the event. In our previous event, we spoke on ISB's first crypto event. We spoke on Ethereum scalability solutions. We spoke on layer 2 networks. We spoke on different kinds of protocols. In this session, we'd like to speak on NFTs, cryptos, their adoption, their regulation, their security, etc. So I'll try to moderate the panel. I'll check out the questions and we'll go one by one. So we'll use the same road. Journey, Sharan, Shashi, and I, we can go one-on-one. So Journey, the first question that has come to you from Aishwarya from Surat, interesting question. She says, is there any possibility in the future that we can buy and sell, articles, content, writings, etc. through NFTs? Because right now, at present, we can trade only photos and GIFs via NFTs. Do you see any kind of content writing, articles writing via NFTs? Please go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great question. I really love it. I think the short answer is yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think NFT is great for any form of creative media, creative creation. And the reason why a lot of the NFTs that we see right now, they are more visual. I think it's because people can actually sort of associate certain NFTs with their own identity, and it's also easier for people to sort of share with their friends and family. But when it comes to content, I think text NFTs. Actually, there is a platform that people can buy and sell tweets. It's called I think Valuables by Cent. So actually, Jack Dorsey, which is the creator of the founder of Twitter, his first tweet when Twitter was first launched was actually sold for almost $3 million US. So again, I think for creators, if you are a writer, I think you can use NFT as sort of like a way to engage your readers. And I think to quote Roham, who is the founder of Dapper Labs, creator of CryptoKitties and NFT Top Shot, he said that NFT is the currency of fandom. And I think I really agree with that. So yeah, use NFT for your content writing and everything.
That's well put. But Journey, I have one additional question to you. For the new folks who have joined who might not know what an NFT is, can you give a short description, definition, what an NFT is, what does it stand for, etc.? A simple 1 or 2 liners, so that the new folks can understand it. Yeah.
Sure. So NFT actually stands for non-fungible token, but simply put, it's really a digital asset, right, that represents the ownership of something unique. So because NFT is actually use the same blockchain technology that powers, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ether, so it shares the benefit of blockchain where it's traceable, it's immutable, and it's decentralized. And basically, when you use NFT to buy and trade collectibles, artworks, etc., you can trace the ownership and transaction history right back from the origin. So that is very, very valuable. And also, basically, you can trade NFTs anywhere, anytime, almost instantaneously.
Excellent, well put. Sharan, there's a question to you from Tarun from New York, who's working with ICICI Bank. He just DM'd me. Guys, no need to DM me, you can just put on the chat box for everyone to read. He says, it's a beautiful question. How will the world of digital assets look in the year 2025? Since you're on the business side, since you deal with people on day-on-day basis, can please do answer that particular question.
I think the most important aspect of digital asset that most people don't really realize at this point in time is that to most people, digital asset is just about investment, finance, and all of that, right? They think of it as an industry or probably a sector, and nobody really thinks about it like a protocol. For me, if you have to do a comparison of the digital asset industry, you have to compare it to the internet itself, right? Every aspect of your life that has been touched by the internet will be touched by digital asset, the whole industry, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be just finance. For example, your social media could be one place where you would still see the industry move into. You would start seeing them in the supply chain, hundreds of different things. So the way I look at it is that it's a world where it's going to touch every aspect of what we do. And I think the way mass adoption would come in is that most people would somehow be interacting with a product or a service that at the back end uses all of this technology and might not even know that they are using something on the blockchain. Right, that's the critical aspect of it. Today, buying of cryptocurrency is just a small thing, right? It's just onboarding people into the whole sector, but most people miss out on the larger piece of what's getting built. The whole space itself is so large that it's worth diving in. And every morning you wake up, there's new thing, and Shashi would agree with me on this because we both run exchanges in one way, right? By evening, there's two other things that's got built. So we ourselves are students of how it is. But what I can say is that it's going to look extremely massive. Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Shashi, coming to you, Sharan from Telio Labs had posted this question. Could you please address the taxation related matters of cryptos, NFTs, etc., as they're difficult to be classified under a particular territorial jurisdiction? Interesting.
Certainly, while I won't give any tax advice, and I'll recommend that you reach out to your advisor. I'll give you my understanding of the space. So I'll take first NFT part because I see one chat NFT is mentioned. NFT is nothing but digital representation of some asset, right? So it's an asset. There is no ambiguity about it. And depending on how you trade in it or create or buy or sell, depending on your unique circumstances, it can be a business income for you, it can be a capital gain in terms of asset for you, or it can be income from other sources. Now coming back to crypto, because cryptos are a little different than NFT. Broader crypto, again, I will say your tax liability on buy, sell, or any income or gain from cryptos would largely depend on how you treat crypto. Similar to how you do maybe stocks. If you are a regular trader, right, then profits and gains. And if it is a business, then obviously it becomes your business income. So you can essentially compute how much you bought, how much you sold, what is the difference, what is the actual income, what is the cost involved, and based on that you can derive a profit on which you are supposed to pay tax at your nominal rate. If you are just an investor like most of us, who occasionally buys and at times tries to capture market movement and tries to maximize the value of the asset held, then any sale and the tax part here, which I'm talking about, would primarily be more relevant to India, but apply globally as well. Any sale you do or any income you make would be subject to tax as per provisions of capital gains, right? Although there has been a lack of clarity from income tax departments on how to treat crypto investments, etc. Sometimes they have kind of asked some investors to treat it as income from other sources. But my view is that if you challenge that decision, actually you can treat it like either a capital gain or as a business income, depending on your nature. Again, unique circumstances for everyone. You have to maybe take appropriate tax advice.
Excellent, excellently put. I see the chat box being flooded with questions. That's amazing. We'll go through them one by one. A DM from Mr. Saurabh. A good question. I think I'll take this. He says that he was a part of a scam a couple of months ago. The scam was pretty simple. You give 2 Bitcoin, you'll get 4 Bitcoin in return, and the Bitcoin that he took was lost. I apologize, Mr. Saurabh, for that. There are a lot of scams, a lot of exchanges being hacked happening. how do you take care of the security aspects? A good question. So, Shubham, yeah, there's an entire new field called blockchain analytics coming up, which does this entire thing. Since the entire blockchain industry, all the cryptos are all open, decentralized ledgers, basically. Your every single transaction is immutably posted on the blockchain, which is open for anybody to verify. So all the transactions that have ever happened on, say, Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc., it is open for anybody to pass through, to audit, whatever. So there are tools, there are open source tools where you can actually trace the flow of funds to see from your wallet, where the funds are going, from which wallet the funds have been posted to, which exchanges, etc. So those are a good ways to actually trace your crypto to find out where your culprit, your suspect has cashed out from. Maybe he stole money from you. He might do 2-3 hops, 2-3 transactions. Then he might end up in Binance to cash out. So you'll see that, okay, this crypto address belongs to Binance, and from there, using Binance's KYC norms, you'll be able to catch hold of that person easily. So please reach out to me. We can work on this. Not an issue. Thank you so much for that particular question. The next question to Journey from Neil Vora in the chat box. It's a conceptual question. Does the ownership of NFT mean ownership of the physical assets as well, Journey? Let me just bundle up with what Nishant Bhardwaj has also asked. How are NFTs valued? Is this based on what your followers or customers are ready to pay? So can you take these two questions, Journey?
Yeah, sure. Great questions again. So first question, does ownership of NFT mean the ownership of physical asset as well? I think that really depends on what the NFT itself represents. So actually the earliest NFTs, they're all crypto native, right? So for example, CryptoPunks, they're really just digital, like pixel art. So in that sense, it doesn't come with any physical artwork. But of course, if you own a CryptoPunk, you can print it out, you can create other sort of physical artworks based on your collection. But there are also NFT collections that actually come with physical artwork. For example, Damien Hirst, the currency collection. So actually he created 10,000 pieces of dots, right? So each of them is called a tender, and the whole collection is called the currency, and there are 10,000 of them. So as an NFT buyer, you actually can claim a physical piece of artwork. But the trick, I think the question is, I think he made this a little bit tricky. You have to decide by next July whether you want to keep the physical copy or you want to keep the digital NFTs. So I think that's quite an interesting experiment there.
Interesting, very, very interesting.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool. There's an interesting question to Sharan from Siddharth from Microsoft. Are DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, truly decentralized and out of reach of regulatory institutions? Any thoughts on the ICP protocols, tools, and promise of truly decentralized Web3 ecosystem? That's a heavy question, Sharan. Let me bundle it with what Kritika has also asked in the chat box. Do you foresee blockchain bringing about a shift in company structures evolving to DAOs, just like internet brought along the IT space? So it's all about DAOs. Please go ahead.
I think DAOs is quite an exploratory space right now, right? We don't know the implications of it yet, right? Are they truly decentralized? I think there's nothing called truly decentralized, right? Like there's always an extent and degree to which things are decentralized. Now, at the end of the day, if you look at it, a couple of things that some of the instances that I have seen where people have been making DAOs have had concerns was that the people who are initially writing the contract, right? They are citizens of some country. Can they be caught hold of? Right, because they are at least based on some countries, right? For example, I've known, can DAO tokens be sold in certain countries? They probably can't be, right? For example, US might prohibit people from purchasing a certain kind of token which might be associated to a DAO, right? So there would still be some element of regulatory constraints. It's possible to do that. So I wouldn't really say it's truly decentralized. However, the functioning of it, once you're in the system, can be achieved in a very truly decentralized manner. Right? Once the element of human touch is gone into just the protocol level, then it's truly decentralized. But at the end of the day, it's still operated by humans who still belong and have citizenship and can be then questioned by the law of the country they belong to.
That's extremely well put, very realistic, very on ground realities are there. Interesting. Shashi, a tough question to you from Mr. Rahul from Standard Chartered. How likely is the total crypto ban in India by the Indian bill expected in the winter parliament session? Any workaround planned by exchanges? Beautiful question, Mr. Rahul. We want to hear what Shashi says.
Yeah, and especially that, he's working with the Standard Chartered Bank. Yeah, so as far as banning is concerned, I believe government has been, at least, finance minister has been categorical that, there's not going to be a complete ban, right? That's one thing. That's on regulation side. Another is on practicality side. How do you ban crypto? There is no practical way to ban crypto unless you actually control the whole internet within your country. Some countries in our neighbor actually are trying to ban cryptos, but it's proving a challenge even for them. Now coming back to cryptos itself, regulation is the way forward. I mean, either you let the industry flourish on its own, which may not be comfortable for all the stakeholders, because there are a lot of interests involved, especially from investor protection side, from stability of monetary system side, from concerns of a variety of security and law enforcement agencies side. So, and obviously, reporting of some bad thing happening in the sector, like scams, etc. So we believe that government will take a very pragmatic approach on this, and will create either a super regulator or a mix of some regulators. And regulation is going to be the way forward. I mean, for the time being, this is only I can say. Yeah.
Beautiful. Good. Jenny, interesting question to you from Purva from DXC Tech. Do you foresee the use of NFT for fashion as a proof of receipt for luxury goods? Do you want me to repeat?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I got that. Great question again. I think crypto was used for like supply chain management quite early on. There's a project called VeChain that actually used blockchain to do supply chain management, not just on fashion, but I think wine as well, or food. But with regard to the question to luxury goods, actually earlier this year, I think it's in April, LVMH and Prada Group actually announced a blockchain consortium. It's called Aura. So what they're doing is essentially to use blockchain to trace, from sourcing the material to manufacturing, as well as retail and even secondary, market. So it's really to provide the level of transparency and of course, proof of authenticity for luxury goods. I think another interesting aspect of luxury goods is that we see a lot of big brands, right? Like LV again, Dolce & Gabbana, Burberry, they're using NFTs to connect with their fans and to build actually, virtual sort of items like fashion items that people can use, in the virtual world or in metaverse. So I think that's a very, very interesting trend for fashion in NFT as well.
Interesting. That's a good way to put it. Mr. J. Parekh has asked this question to Sharan. How does one evaluate intrinsic value of cryptocurrency on a continuous basis as an investor? Very, very interesting. Let me just bundle up with another question from another person from JP Morgan Chase. How do you add intrinsic tangible / non-tangible value in different class of crypto? So Sharan, go ahead, please.
Sure. I think the first question part, right, this is something that has been asked, debated over and over again, debated since 2013. The debate continues. I also once got into a clubhouse room when someone had a mathematical formula to how to calculate and all of this. So there are different ways people try to do it. But let me speak of this as a layman, right? And I remember this exact problem happening with software companies in the beginning, right? How do you evaluate a software? Right? At the end of the day, it's a code, and crypto is a code, right? Now think of this: we're sitting on a Zoom, right? And this conversation is happening on a code written by Zoom company, right? And Zoom is a public company; it's listed, share values. what is the intrinsic value behind that share price, right? As a layman like me, if I'm able to do this and talk to so many brilliant people out here and get great questions, that's the intrinsic value to me, the organization, everybody who's joining in. And that's the same thing with cryptocurrencies from a layman point of view. What problem is it solving? Is it making your life any better, right? If somebody is using a particular cryptocurrency for, say, for solving of the supply chain issues, then that's the intrinsic value of the coin. That's what it does. Right. So the fact that, oh, there's nothing tangible behind it. So is it not? I think it doesn't make sense considering the fact that software industry is now, software is eating the world, famously said by Mark Anderson. And I say crypto is eating the world now, right? So that's where for me the intrinsic value comes. The second question, I was not very sure what that exactly meant. So if you could just dump it down for me, I'll be able to say something about that.
Sure. This person from JP Morgan Chase, how do you add intrinsic tangible / non-tangible value in different classes of crypto?
It's a little confused on what that means.
Yeah. Cool. We'll take that.
Yeah, later.
Yeah, we'll take that later. Shashi, Kritika B asks this question to you. How do you manage your businesses knowing that regulation in the space is constantly, rapidly, unpredictably evolving? For instance, I'm reminded of certain crypto exchanges, thinking CoinX, had to shut down in 2019 because of the regulations. So you're on the compliance and regulatory perspective. Please answer that.
Yeah. Thanks for that question. So we are always forward-looking. We are optimistic because we are in a phase where we are creating something new or participating in creation of something new. What we do from primarily compliance side to ensure that we are actually on the right side of law when there is any sort of semblance of regulation coming in, that we anticipate what could possibly come in as a regulation, what is the current best practices in, say, broader financial services space. Like FATF a few years ago had come out with its own recommendations around virtual asset service providers and virtual assets, right? And it said that since it's also a financial service industry, it needs to have a basic KYC and anti-money laundering and transaction monitoring capabilities as part of broader regulatory environment. So we take that as a starting step, and based on and on top of that, we build our own internal procedures and policies with a view that sooner than later will be a part of broader financial service regulatory environment. As far as challenges are concerned, like I was mentioning, challenges are everywhere, even in traditional banking. The way things evolve and improve and change rapidly, you anticipate. That's where I believe the whole compliance risk management comes into picture. You anticipate your potential obligations based on any regulatory change, and you prepare yourself for that. I believe at least being a part of Sharan is also part of that group, which we are part of in India, a broader forum of crypto and blockchain companies. We anticipate those things. That's why we have already created a common code of conduct, common minimum standards for accepting clients and accepting their KYC, common minimum standards for transaction monitoring, what to allow, what not to allow, etc. So we are doing that. So we are creating our own sort of self-regulatory environment, anticipating that tomorrow, yes, will be treated as any other formal sector.
Interesting. Very well put.
I'd like to add in like two things to that, right? Not on the technical side, but I think uncertainty is just so much built into our DNA, right? That I think has become our mod now, right? Constantly evolving and figuring out how to move day by day itself has become our mod, and I think that's truly how great industries are built, right? If you talk to early backers of internet, say for example Mark Anderson, and you'd see the same element, right? Uncertainty has always been their mode in building something remarkable.
Excellently put. Yeah, that's true. Cool. The next question by Abhishek D'Souza. Are my coins safe on cryptocurrency exchanges? Excellent question. From a security points perspective, I'd like to add a few points to that. So Abhishek, whenever you look at exchanges holding your coins, you need to ensure that the exchanges themselves have a few properties enabled. One, from an information security point of view, they have really good structures, infrastructures to ensure that they are hack proof. That is one. But more importantly, from a KYC and KYT perspective, KYC, you need to ensure that your particular exchange does their KYC meticulously. Your exchange should know whom exactly they're doing business with, so that they know the bank account details, the INT proofs, the various passport, whatever. So they know exactly who is doing what kind of trades, transactions, etc. From a regulatory perspective, from an AML sanction screening perspective. From a KYT perspective, they also need to ensure that in the virtual space, the crypto that the exchange themselves are handling does not come from illicit sources. It does not come from illegal sources such as, say, money laundering or dark web cryptos, or say terrorist financing cryptos. So for that, you need to ensure that they perform KYT as well. So when you are depositing your coins in your Bitcoin, any kind of crypto in an exchange, ensure that they have KYC tools, KYT tools, so the real world people are safe. The virtual world currency themselves is safe, and more importantly, they have a strong infrastructure built to ensure that they are hack proof. So I hope that should answer your particular question. Journey, there's one question from Umang from Digiflint, a bit controversial, but we need to take this. Is the NFT mania anyway similar to the tulip mania, which happened in the 1500s? Otherwise, what is the material basis to such explosive valuation of a few pixels, of a few JPEGs? That's a tough question to answer. Apologies to put you under the spotlight, Journey. Please go ahead.
I love the question. I think, yeah. Well, I think personally, I believe that tulips, there are, unlimited tulips there in the world, as long as we're willing to grow them. And when you refer to, explosive prices of a few pixels, I think probably you're referring to the CryptoPunks, which is, in my Zoom background, if you can see the tiny little pixels, it's just 24 by 24 pixel avatars. So yeah, I think in terms of why people actually are paying hundreds of thousands, actually Visa, right, just bought a CryptoPunk last month for $150,000. Why people are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for these CryptoPunks? I think it's partly because CryptoPunks was the NFT collection that actually inspired a whole new token standard. So before CryptoPunk, we only have ERC20, right? Many people do ICOs, issue your own tokens, start your own crypto projects. But with CryptoPunk, it actually inspired a new token standard where you can have richer functionality, you can have different traits and properties embedded on smart contract, which is called, non-fungible token as we know it today. So a lot of collectors, when they look at the historical significance, and of course also because it's rare, there are only 10,000 of them in the world, unlike tulips that we can grow unlimitedly. I think, yeah, that's probably, again, it's really what people value them, and based on historical value and based on innovation and of course rarity. I think a few factors, but again, I think when it comes to intangible, artwork, collectible, it's true that it's valued as much as how much the next buyers are willing to pay.
Beautifully said. There are a lot of terminologies over there. So guys, I request you to take these terminologies, do a research on your own, read the Wikipedia pages, read the white papers, read a lot so that you actually understand what Journey just said. It's a concept that needs effort on your own side to understand the space much better. Sharan, the next question is one of the most important questions that could be there. So I'll pose that to you. What advice would you have for those who are interested in building a career in crypto? How to identify which companies are good to work for? Are there any job portals focused on this, etc.? Because I say this is extremely important because the crypto industry, the blockchain industry is growing rapidly, and we want talent from the other industries to get into this. Ritesh Chopra has asked this question. Just to add to that, Kritika also asked similar question. In context of entrepreneurship in this space, how do you think of your careers and the careers of your employees shape in the long run? So from a career perspective, from a job perspective, can you give some advice on what people need to learn, read, research, etc.? Or please go ahead.
Sure. Before I start giving an elaborate answer, but let me just tell you, right? My head of blockchain, who heads my blockchain, the technology part of it at the company, does not have an engineering degree, right? Why? He comes from arts background. Why do I say this? I say this because the whole fact about crypto is that it's decentralized and open, right? So I think the first step about building a career in crypto is to you to decide that I want to get into it, right? It is not a hidden technology that we have wrapped around and you only get access to it once we say, oh, you come in to my company, I'll do it, right? You can just go play around with the code, build a project. Trust me, we are looking for people, we can't find them, right? So there's a dearth of talent in the space, the rate which is exploding. Oh, nothing stops you, right? I'm saying, and nobody's asking you for your resume, nobody's asking you for which background do you come from, right? Do an NFT, build something, send it to a company, they'll be more than happy to hire you, right? I would say go one more extent. Why don't you build your own project? It's an open, decentralized system. I know a 13-year-old kid who's building projects day in and day out based out of India. I know a bunch of people are doing a lot of things. So that's the thing about a career in crypto, right? You don't have to depend on companies. You don't have to be at the mercy of companies that would look at it and say that, oh, you're not from this college, I'm not going to hire you, and all of that. It's completely open. It's for you. So what is the most essential thing for you to get into crypto? It's you wanting to get into crypto, right? That's the most important thing, and nothing stops you from there. It's as simple as that, right? As far as how your career will come up, there are two things to this, right? I'm somebody who invests in crypto and stocks both, right? One thing that I've always seen about, and why I prefer crypto over stocks, and I'm talking about this not from a perspective of someone who runs an exchange, is because when I buy a stock of a bank, there's nothing I can do with the bank, right? I'm just leaving on the mercy of what the board of directors does there. But when I invest in a crypto, one, I'm contributing to the community. One, I can be a part of the community because I can contribute code to it. I can build a community around it. I can talk about the project. I can do so much more. So it's the first most inclusive kind of investment that you make, right? So the career wise, I think when you enter the crypto space, it's like pretty much, and I'm pretty sure it'll be much bigger than what it was like to get into software in the beginning, right? Look at us, most of us like a really enthusiastic young bunch of people doing it, right? It's just so open for everyone. I can keep talking about this every day because I keep hiring people and I've been telling this to people over and over again. But I think reiterating what I said in the beginning, the first step to have a career in crypto is you wanting to get into crypto, and that's pretty much it.
Excellently put. One interesting point that you made was you buy stocks and you can't do anything about it, but you buy crypto, you can actually, it's an inclusive way to increase the internal value. That's the first time I've heard that. Extremely well put. Cool. Shashi, one question to you from Mr. Yog from Four Spots. What can the blockchain community do to speed up the compliance and regulatory processes across the world? Right now, we are in there's no regulatory clarity much in most of the countries. A few countries are banning, a few countries are adopting crypto as a legal tender. So what can we do as a community, as an industry, to speed up this entire process from a regulatory perspective, from a compliance perspective?
That's a very interesting question in the sense that, while blockchain is praised across the globe, I believe no country has actually said that blockchain is bad. Somehow, cryptos are always, treated as the bad guys. I believe the way, to answer your question, if we push blockchain to so much or use it in such a way that it impacts virtually everything in your life, including your regulations. Let's say, I'll give you a quick example. Securities currently, and I'll give this example in the context of India. So currently, and I'll also give you a very brief historical perspective, so that you can better relate. When I started my career and when I was training to be a company secretary, one day, my boss, gave me a key. I said, "What this key is for?" He said, "It's for storage." So, and he asked me, "So we have shared transfer forms, securities transfer forms. Go check and fill whatever is missing." Now, during those days, before securities when securities were actually used to be transferred on the basis of a physical securities transfer form, there was very limited accountability, etc. And I have seen companies during good old days that some company had actually issued total say 100,000 securities, and the actual volume of trade happening on an exchange, if you put all securities together, will probably end up 100, 2,000, 1,200, or 1,500. So there were more securities being traded than actually available. Then obviously it came into a stage where it was digitized, securities were assigned individual numbers, etc. And currently audit or periodic reconciliation happens. However, there is always a bit of lack of trust in the sense that you are actually relying on the auditor who is giving the certificate and relying on the company that, okay, this is the actual number of security. If you put blockchain there as part of your security, what you do is it's obviously depending on your comfort, you can have closed loop block, privately accessible blockchain, or maybe blockchain accessible only to say a set of regulators and some of the holders. You put everything transparently on a ledger, right? Which you cannot change, right? So every security, when it's created, is recorded. When it's transferred, is recorded. Currently, who is holding is recorded. If it is going to be extinguished in some ways, it is going to be recorded. So there is full trail available. That's one side. Second, let's broaden this concept. Accounting. We all of us probably have seen Enron, WorldCom. Back in India, we have Satyam scandals based on fuzzing of books. Accountants, colluding with company CEOs and finance professionals to cook the books. Put the accounting on blockchain, and you have full transparency. You cannot go back and change a particular invoice or a particular ledger entry. I know that it may sound little different from what the question you've asked. What I'm saying is, if we increase the use cases and if we push for those uses, ultimately the product of that technology is going to be more acceptable. That's one thing. Second, I understand that since cryptos, Bitcoin primarily was originally created to get out of the control of central banking monetary system, right? So there has always been a kind of motivation of piracy in the whole Bitcoin creation thing, that I don't want to be uh, at the mercy of a central government which can, or a federal reserve which can print as much money as it wants, which can devalue my wealth whenever it wants. So that used to be the idea. So that agenda is not going to change very soon. The governments have an inherent interest in tightly controlling the money supply. Otherwise, they lose a significant portion of their powers, because military is no longer considered the most powerful thing. Money is, right? So if we somehow push our cases that cryptos and blockchain are the next phase of evolution of money, and if we get significant buy-in from uh, governments, I believe we have already won the game. Yeah.
Absolutely, extremely well put. I like that quotation where you said it's not military which is stronger, it is the money, and the governments would want to catch hold of that. Excellently put. A similar question by Mr. Ajinkya, similar to how do we speed up the compliance regulatory process. Just to add to what Shashi had said, I come from the government sector. I worked with bureaucrats. I worked with all kinds of law enforcement agencies all my life. So for them, right now, they don't really understand what crypto is. They don't really understand blockchain, the technicalities, because to be honest, it's a very technical subject. So what we at TRN Labs have been doing is that for the last 6 months, 1 year, we have been giving these training sessions to law enforcement agencies across the country. We give sessions to almost 25 different important law enforcement agencies, more from a perspective of how do we monitor cryptocurrencies, how do we perform investigations if something illegal happens, what exactly is this, why is this important, and the user base is rapidly increasing in India. Right now, it's around 1.5 crores of folks are into crypto. So yes, teaching them about what crypto is, ensuring that this decentralized approach is much better than what we have currently in the monetary form of it makes much more sense. So yes, right now, on top of what Shashi said, increasing the number of use cases, on top of that, teaching to the regulators, to law enforcement agencies, to the ones who actually make the rules is much more important it could be just a closed room interaction based on which the entire policy decisions themselves will be changing, and that is something we need to ensure that happens in every country. So that's a beautiful question, Mr. Yog from Four Spots. Joining back to you, there's this interesting question from Pooja from Siemens. Particularly interested in how at their respective organizations, the panelists see the future of blockchain, NFTs, cryptos, and the initiatives within their organizations around this area. So can you tell us a bit of what Nansen does, and how do you see NFTs being pushed by your company, please?
Okay, thank you for the question. I guess a good way to put it is probably people see opportunities, right, in decentralized finance, and they also want to have the visibility of what actually is happening on chain. Of course, blockchain, data is open, but of course at Nansen we actually added that layer of insight, which is to label those entities, so we actually see, what is happening, who is doing what on chain. And of course, I think when it comes to NFTs, we do see a surge of interest, right? So I was just looking at the numbers just now at OpenSea volume. And I think in August, OpenSea definitely has smashed its own record, where it had $3.4 billion in transaction volume. And that was more than like the total transaction volume combined since its inception in 2018. And that's definitely a hockey stick growth. And we still think it's very early, because right now a lot of people, when we discuss NFTs, we think of JPEGs, GIFs, memes, NFT Top Shot moments, or maybe in-game items such as Axie Infinity. So we do see maybe the future of gaming is play to earn. You will have NFT as your item, as your cosmetic items or characters, and also different content creation, as we discussed earlier. It doesn't have to be visual art. It could be text and other form, music, anything. So it's really just early, and a lot of people are getting interested in either creating their own NFTs or to support these NFT creators. So we really want to be here to help both creators and investors and traders to grow in the space.
Interesting. Thank you for that input, Johnny. Sharan, there's this question from Miss Nandini from New Jersey, a bit long question. What are some good examples of real world experiments going on in the corporate sector outside of the financial sector? It appears from my supply chain finance world that this sector is ripe for smart contracts that would significantly reduce the waste today incurred in reconciling data along the flow of products, money, and supply chain data around. Are there any interesting applications being tried out in this sector specifically? So Nandini from New Jersey asks, what are the various industries that could be disrupted by blockchain? Any specific information from the supply chain perspective? Feel free to answer in any of those parts.
Sure. I'm not really sure, but I think at some point Bajaj was trying to do something on the supply chain using blockchain, right? And most of the corporate development which is happening and using blockchain is generally a little confidential, so the details of it is not so publicly available. However, I think two interesting spaces where I see blockchain really making a dent is one, when it comes to digital identity, right? Now, think of it something like this, right? For example, you want to walk into a club and you need to prove that you're 18 plus if you want to get into a club. Now, one way for me to do that today is to give them my ID card, which shows my date of birth, but then it also tells them my name. It also tells them probably a lot of my blood group, a lot of my other details that I didn't need it. However, just imagine it's election season and I went to vote, and I have this ink on my hand, which proves that I vote. So I walk into a club and then say, you have to prove that you are 18 plus. And I just show them the ink on my finger, right? Which proves to them, because you can't vote if you're not 18 plus, which proves to them that you're 18 plus, and I've not revealed any of my identity, right? So digital identity in a space where you don't have to reveal your details and yet prove that you are, whatever you're saying is true, will be a huge thing. This could be then extrapolated to even e-commerce today, right? One of the basic things that gets us really fearful is how our cards get stolen from all of these e-commerce websites. Why does the card need my name and all of that? If I can just plug in and prove that I have the money in my bank account, they don't need my date of birth. They don't need my personal details. And I don't have to be worried about that getting sold in the dark web. So that is one large use case of where I see, or I'm particularly interested about what blockchain can do and could dramatically change a lot of things that we do. Second is how blockchain is solving the issue around human trafficking today, right? Ability to kind of track and put things into place is challenging and is making it extremely difficult for people to do human trafficking, right? Why are these things close to me? Because for a lot of people, blockchain and crypto is a lot about finance and all of that. But for me, at the core of it has always been about how can you make your lives better, right? So I think along with that, every other sector, whether it's like what NFT is doing to music, art, and all of that, I think every single sector would have some use cases that will be dramatically changing that space.
Those were extremely interesting and apt examples. Thank you for that. Shashi, Akash Agarwal has asked this question. How stable are stablecoins really? Believe that some that have been claims in the past that USDT was actually not holding the currency 1:1. Any regulations around this? So from a regulatory perspective, can you talk about a bit on stable coins or also central bank digital currencies as well? Before you answer that, we have 5 minutes more left. So I'd like to extend the session, if it's okay with the speakers, by 3 to 5 minutes more to have a one last round of questions. So Shashi, please go ahead with that. Stable coins and CBDCs, please.
Yeah, so I'll quickly, talk about CBDCs. CBDCs are nothing but digital representation of native, legal tender, native currency. So if it's US dollar and United States government tomorrow wants to issue CBDC, it will be no different from the paper dollar. If say Indian government tomorrow decides to issue or it's working on CBDC, it's not going to be very different from your 100, 500,000 to no longer 1,000, 2,000 rupee note. Only it will be digitally issued, fully traceable because it will be based on some sort of blockchain as well. So when we talk about CBDC, let's not go too much into what CBDCs are. I mean, as far as I know, if you are participating in CBDC or if you have digital currency, central bank digital currency, it's not going to be very different from what you have currently in terms of paper currency. The only thing that implications of digital currency is that the government will have full traceability. I mean, say I borrowed say 1,000 rupees from Sharan, who may have taken that money from Journey, who got it from Akand, and the whole chain. Government has full visibility. While it will help reduce, some of the bad, things which is associated with cash transactions, but let's leave it there. Now, coming back to stable coins. Currently, obviously, there is no coherent strategy as far as stable coins are concerned, and trust is a big issue because most stable coins are controlled by either entities or individuals centrally, right? Obviously, they occasionally talk about reserves being audited, etc. But even those are questioned. You talked about USDT. I am not in a position to say with confidence that it's fully backed by any specific security or currency because I do not have visibility around that. So trust, when we talk about stable coins and any possible regulations around stable coin has to necessarily have a few ingredients, few characteristics. Number one, it has to be fully transparent. It has to be fully auditable and visible to public. Uh, Today, if I have say 100 rupee in my bank account, $1,000 in my bank account, and assuming I'm a public corporation, I can put that for public to see that, okay, this is my today's balance. The balance has changed because I have say added say 500 more. So now I have 1,500 instead of $1,000. If stablecoin issuers wants to increase that, or if regulator tomorrow creates some sort of regulation, although it will be very difficult to do because most issuers would typically do what we generally call regime hopping. Obviously, you move to a regime where you have less rigorous compliance requirements or less rigorous, regulatory regime. However, for a broader acceptability, you have to have trust. You have to earn the trust of the community. Unfortunately, that's largely missing with most of the stable coins currently. While we are currently, taking it on faith only that okay, maybe at some stage it will come around to having transparency. But that's the solid state currently, unfortunately.
That's a very well detailed, extremely well put answer, Shashi. Thank you for that. We'll take one last question, and then we'll have a short closing statements from each of the panelists, and then we can end. We have like 1 minute left. Saurabh asks this question to everybody. One, what is the ownership distribution of popular cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, Ethereum today? Second, how much of crypto is laying dormant in wallets? Third, how much of crypto is traded for goods and services in India on average? This question is extremely beautiful, Saurabh, because if you ask the same questions in a fiat world, in the real world about how much of rupees or dollars or yen one is doing, you won't get an answer. The beauty of the crypto industry, the beauty of the blockchain industry is that all the questions that you have asked, all the data that you asked is open for anybody to access. You just go to any block explorers or you just Google what is the current distribution of Bitcoin. You will get an entire chart with the exact right number saying that the top 50 wallets contain maybe the 13% of all the Bitcoin, the last, the below 10% contains 50% of Bitcoin, whatever it is. You get exact data right to the point, and you'll be able to see the data which wallets have how much of cryptos as well. That level of transparency, that level of openness, that level of decentralization doesn't come in any other form of monetary currency, which is why I thought of taking this question last, because this actually showcases why this particular conversation is important. Because the data that you asked is freely available to you, just like how the internet gives you any data that you would want. You build a Google for the entire internet space. In the same way, there are enough blockchain explorers, blockchain analytics tools, which give you all this data in a very transparent fashion. Thank you for asking that question, Saurabh. Journey, any short 1 minute, 2 minute closing statements that you would want to make from the topic perspective, crypto and NFTs, its adoption, its regulation and security, please?
Yeah, sure. I think, to be honest, it's really just to, like what Sharan has mentioned earlier, I totally agree with him, is that it really depends on you. You just need to be in crypto. You need to be interested in crypto and, explore and just play around, install a MetaMask wallet, for example, buy some NFTs, don't have to be the very expensive ones, and really to just understand how the transaction works. Why is everyone saying crypto? It's more open, transparent, and secure in that way. I think, yeah, that's the future for every one of us.
Thank you, Journey. Sharan?
Yeah, I think this is something that I keep telling people, and I think it's a little apt to say this here. I know that a bunch of people here are like the smartest out there in India, right? You guys studied from the best college out there. I would urge each one of you to kind of really go look into it, because crypto, like I mentioned earlier, is not an industry. You like it or not, it's going to be a part of your life at some point in time. I've been saying this since 2014, and I continue to say this. So it's like coding, right? It's pretty much like learning how to code. You can't afford to not learn how to code if you want to live in a future world. And just like that, if you don't understand crypto, at some point you're going to be illiterate.
Thank you, Sharan. Shashi?
Yeah, what Journey and Sharan mentioned, I just extended to broader regulations and compliances around crypto. So I say, government will try, to throttle at times and tries to regulate, but the sector is going to stay here. It cannot be banned, even though some countries will try to do that. The asset will actually move to some other country, and it's going to be there. Obviously, a bit of clarity would help, and we are hopeful that that will come with due course. But let's not stop that from you exploring the space yourself. Learn, participate, make it so big as an industry that it's difficult to ignore, and that's the only thing I can say.
Beautifully said. Just to add on to that, the industry itself is extremely nascent. We are in the very initial stages of the industry. And I would want talent to migrate to the crypto industry, to the blockchain industry, to extend the entire industry forward. Right now, they're not even regulations. It will be regulated. It will once the governments, the law enforcement agencies are sure that the entire industry is safe. It doesn't have any illicit transactions, any illicit activity within that. Once it's regulated, it will explode, and it would be really nice to be in the industry before that happens, because you will be the leaders of the next 10, 20, 30 years. There was this survey which says that for the next decade or so, blockchain technology skill set is going to be one of the biggest skill sets that there would be. That being said, I would like to thank the audience for the beautiful questions. They were some of the toughest, some of the smartest questions that I came across. I hope that these panelists were not uncomfortable answering some of the tough questions. But thank you for these questions. And the panelists, I completely appreciate taking the time out of your busy schedules, because this particular panel, I am in love with it, because we have NFTs, we have adoption, we have from a business perspective, we have from the compliance perspective, from a regulatory perspective, from a legal perspective, from the security perspective. We try to cover all of these angles in this particular 1 hour session. And I thank you for this amazing, enlightening session that we've had. We have recorded this session and we'll post it on YouTube and share that link with anybody who asks. Thank you again. Have a very nice night. Thank you for coming on a Saturday evening. The audience and the panelists as well. I completely appreciate it. Thank you and have a nice day, guys. We close the session.
Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.